Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just checking if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay. And I'm in the right meeting, right?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Cheng and Anya, yes, you are in the right meeting. Roberto is our studio host and he will open the session in a minute.
I see. Okay.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra.
You're welcome.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the part 4 of the NRI Assembly. And let me first read for you the session rules. Please enter with your full name. To ask a question, raise hand using the Zoom function. You will be unmuted when the floor is given to you. And when speaking, switch on the video and state your name and affiliation. The chat will not be stored or published. And do not share links to the Zoom meetings, not even with your colleagues. So we have many speakers, so without further ado, let me give the floor to Cenghetai Masango, head of IGF Secretariat. Cenghetai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Roberta. So following the rules, my name is Cenghetai Masango and I'm in charge of the IGF Secretariat. Thank you very much. And we are just going to go quickly through the intersessional activities and also the road to IGF 2021 in Katowice. As Roberto says, we have quite a large number of speakers, each representing different aspects of our intersessional activities and what we're going to do as we go towards IGF 2021 in Katowice. So I will try and be quick from my part. I'll just do a quick overview. And then unfortunately, Henriette, our chair, the chair of the MAG, is unable to attend. And then I'll hand it over to Anya Gengo, whom you all know. And she is the National and Regional IGF Initiative focal point and also the Associate Program Expert for the IGF Secretariat. Thank you. Is it possible that I can share my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, Cenghetai, let me just drop my screen and then you can go.
There we go. And can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So as most of you know, the IGF 2021 process this year is an issue-different approach. This is what the MAG has adopted. And the MAG came up with 2 main focus areas and 4 emerging cross-cutting issue areas. So the 2 main focus areas are economic and social inclusion and human rights. And the second area is universal access and meaningful connectivity. For the cross-cutting issues, the first one is emerging regulation, market structure, content data, and consumer user rights regulation. The second one, as this is a new one, which we started last year, and is also in response to everything that's going on. I mean, climate change is very, very important. So it's environmental sustainability and climate change. The third topic we have is inclusive internet governance, ecosystems, and digital cooperation. And the third is trust, security, and stability. An explanation of all these topics are available on the IGF website. You can download a document, which is the IGF 2021 Guide to Issues and Policy Questions. Now, as we go into the preparatory process for the road to Katowice, we are going to have an engagement phase, so a preparatory and engagement phase, which we're going to be running from July to November in 2021. And what we aim to do is to facilitate in-depth engagement with the IGF 2021 issue areas. And that is to get the community talking about the issues now, so that, and develop their ideas and concepts, and so that when we come to Katowice, we have a very mature, developed discussion going on there. And we also plan to facilitate the engagement with the IGF community for the intersessional activities. And also, which is our main point as well, is to broaden participation, make sure that no sector of internet users' voice is left unheard. Now, for the 16th annual IGF meeting, as you all know, it's going to be on the 6th to 10th December in Katowice in Poland. We do plan to be there physically, and hopefully the majority of people will be able to come there physically and discuss. But as I said, we are planning this as a hybrid meeting, and I'll go more into the hybrid aspects of it in our next slides. But all the outputs from the Poetry Praise will be incorporated into the 2021 meeting. And as I said, the objective is not to start the discussion at the meeting, but they have a very mature discussion at the meeting, and so that we can have solid outputs and solid conclusions, and also that we can have a set next steps as well that we will have after the Katowice meeting. Now, there's three aspects to the Poetry Phase. As I said earlier, a deep dive into the 2021 issue areas, mapping the links between the IGF 2021 issue areas and the activities of the IGF community at large through cooperation and shared online experiences and space. And then we also plan to have feeder workshops, and also having these in cooperation with the national and regional activities, which I'm going to now, I'm concentrating on the second box now. So we're going to have our policy networks, which you're going to hear from just now, our best practice forums as well, and also our dynamic coalitions, and also having the 137 national and regional initiatives that we have. A large part of this praise that we're going to have as well is the capacity development activities. And we're going to have training for session organizers and participants. And this is different from the substantive side that I've said before, but also how people can make best use of the online tools that we have, and so that if you're not able to come, you can still participate meaningfully at the IGF 2021. And so we're going to have training for workshop organizers. We're going to have workshops that also explain the background behind the issues that we're going to be discussing. As I mentioned, the IGF is going to be a hybrid format. And what we mean by hybrid format, because as you know, we've had virtual participation in most of our IGFs since Hyderabad, well, all of our IGFs since Hyderabad. But now we want to take it to the next level, where that the people who are physically there and the people who are not physically there will have virtually the same experience and will be able to participate equally. So it's when we don't want the people who are not there physically to feel that they are disadvantaged in any way. And we're doing this via a lot of things. We are going to have a virtual experience where we're basically rebuilding the IGF venue in virtual space where people can come in, where we have our IGF village, people can come in, talk to people, download, watch the videos, download materials as well. So it will be very, very much comparable to being there. And people, panelists as well. If you can't make it to Katowice, that is fine. We will be integrating the on-site panelists with off-site panelists, and we have workshops that can be done fully virtual and all the mix, all the way from fully virtual to fully present. If there's a fully virtual workshop, it'll still have a workshop room so people can come in, sit down, and participate. We have very strong technical staff there from our Polish hosts, and they'll be able to connect everything. We have a app that we're going to be releasing in September as well, so it'll be ready and tested by December. And when people want to make comments or request the floor, it will be exactly the same experience if you're on site or off site. Now, for the intersessional work, as you said, we have the best practice forums. We have the BPF in cybersecurity on the use of norms to foster trust and security. The best practice forum on gender rights and digital rights. We have, and they're concentrating on gendered disinformation. We have our new policy networks for this year, which you will hear more about shortly, the policy network on environment. And this is focusing on digital technologies for environment and environmental data, food and water security, energy security, supply chains. And then we have the policy network in meaningful access, which is focusing on how to achieve meaningful and universal access. And if you do recall, a couple of years back, we did have a policy network on connecting the next billion. So this could be seen as a follow-on to that, so to speak. And then for the dynamic coalitions, we have 22 dynamic coalitions, and they are focused on various IG issues. For instance, we have the Dynamic Coalition on Accessibility, blockchain, on child rights online, on internet governance schools, on indicators, on security, and a whole lot, which you'll hear about shortly. So you can find all this information on our website. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us or contact the individual leads, which you will hear from shortly. And with that, thank you very much for your attention, and I'll pass it on to Anya Gengo.
Well, thank you very much, Chengetai, and good afternoon from me as well. It's really a pleasure to be at EuroDIG, and it's already a success, and it's been only a few hours if it's to judge by the traffic on social media, which I tend to follow when it comes to the NRI meetings. So special congratulations on that, and we're looking forward to the next 2 days. As Chengetai said, the IGF 2021 is really in its creative phase, and I'm sure EuroDIG understands that and already implementing some of the creative ideas, as well as the other NRIs. And what Chengetai presented is the concept that the MEG and the Secretariat and the community, of course, are all working on in order to ensure that really on our journey toward December, we create conditions which will meaningfully and as equally as possible accommodate all participants, regardless if they will participate online or on site. And one of the most important sections on our journey to Katowice in December is, of course, the intersessional work that Chengetai just mentioned and spoke about its focus. It's very diverse this year, not just in terms of the substance, but also in terms of the format, which allows for different broad scope of engagement possibilities for people that are interested or becoming interested in the topics that Changatai mentioned. But before we give the floor to the co-facilitators of our sessional work streams, I just would like to see if anyone has question or suggestion related to what Changatai presented, especially on the structure of the IGF, including its preparatory phase and the logistics that we are all working on for the 16th annual IGF meeting, which will be hosted in Katowice in December. You can either post in the chat or maybe raise your hand and ask for the floor. And I'll give you a few seconds to think. If not, I just would like to remind that, as Changatai said, the preparatory phase is explained in more detail on the document that I posted in the chat. So it speaks about a couple of categories which are very interactive and very much dependent on you, on all the stakeholders in the community. And we're really hoping that you will help us to understand what the issue areas of the IGF 2021 should be, and if there are any gaps that we should fill in. Of course, we're very much counting on the NRIs to tell us what are the local specificities that we should especially take a careful look at, and ensure that when we meet in December, we really have a comprehensive program and coverage of all the local specificities that are outside in the world. If there are no questions on this part, then let's maybe move toward the second part of this session, which is, I think, very interesting just because of the profile of the speakers and also of the topics that are being represented and analyzed through the intersessional work streams, which Changatai mentioned, and as you've seen, we have a couple of them on very different topics. So Changatai did show you the slide about the nature of the policy networks, of the best practice forums, of the dynamic coalitions, which do form the intersessional work, which means community basically led work. And I also would like just to bring in the concept of the NRIs, the national, regional, and youth IGFs, which are extremely important cooperative partners to us in developing the intersessional work. Thanks to their contributions, we are very much aware of the concerns, but also the potentials on the topics that the intersessional work covers. And in addition to that, many of you will know, as I can tell that many of you are affiliated with the NRIs. Then you will know that the NRIs collectively, 137 of them, are working throughout the year to organize in a bottom-up manner their collaborative sessions, their main session, but also on other important topics for the network, such as, for example, development of materials to ensure better engagement of members of parliaments and members of governments in their local communities, in the NRI processes. And with that, of course, the IGF is hoping that that would also help the IGF to foster the engagement with these very important stakeholder groups. So I will not go back then in explaining the different modalities of the policy networks of best practice forums and dynamic coalitions. I'll just briefly say that dynamic coalitions are issue driven. Unlike the best practice forums or policy networks, they're not tied to a one-year process, but some of them are old as the IGF and are doing excellent work, and they're very much open for you to join. We have colleagues, DC facilitators, I believe Mr. Marcus Kummer will be speaking shortly about it. And in addition to that, the new format that Changatai mentioned are the policy networks. So I'll just briefly underline the main difference between the best practice forums and policy networks. I think the main difference is basically twofold. One is that the policy networks do look beyond just good practices and comparing those. And another important difference is that unlike the best practice forums, the policy networks are, of course, open to everyone to participate, and they are very much fostering the bottom-up development process of its work. But they do have a dedicated multi-stakeholder working group of experts, and that's a main difference. It's already a group that's formed for Policy Network on Meaningful Access and Policy Network on Environment. If you go to the IGF website, and I'll post shortly in the chat the links, then you can see that there is really an interesting high-level composition of experts on those two important topics. while the meaningful access been with the IGF from its beginnings, the environment, as you know, has been with us kind of in an active form since last year, and that makes it even more important for us to really learn from people that build their careers in those particular fields and can help to navigate the community's kind of direction of participation and support in these topics. So without going any longer into this, I would like now to ask our intersessional work co-facilitators to very briefly take the floor and introduce the intersessional work streams they facilitate. I would maybe start from the new formats that we have for this year, which we mentioned, the policy networks, and give the floor to Ms. Raquel Gatto. She is leading the policy network on meaningful access to briefly outline the concept and the policy focus of it.
Thank you very much, Anya. And first of all, I'm very grateful to be here and also enjoying the new format that EuroDIG is bringing for the interaction with the meetings. It's really fun, and thank you very much, EuroDIG team, for that. So just following the rules, my name is Raquel Gatto, and I'm working with the Secretariat to facilitate the recently created IGF Policy Network on Meaningful Access. I believe Chengetai and Anya, of course, brilliantly covered why the policy network is important. So now let me cover a little bit on why the meaningful access. And this concept of meaningful access or meaningful connectivity, there are some nuances in this language, but it really has emerged in the past years. And of course, with the pandemic, it has been growing and catalyzed as connectivity is one of the important lifelines for everybody. But also, it's about the question beyond only the connectivity, right? So even if you are connected, you might not be using and taking the full benefits of the internet itself. So that's the key question. While access and access to infrastructure is important and is critical, meaningful access really means about being inclusive, being sustainable and affordable. It is linked to the human development and also to the relevant content that you can have, right? So this is the broader vision for why meaningful access. We did have, and I'm going to explain the multi-stakeholder working group. So it's kind of governance team. But we do have some of the t-shirts phrases that are building up about access without autonomy is not meaningful, or internet without connectivity isn't the internet with the small I. But really, the important focus and the overarching goal is to look into why, despite all the effort in the past years from multiple stakeholders, the access, meaningful access is still a challenge, and how can we overcome that? So it's about having the holistic approach, but also being realistic in terms of finding those few things that we can really focus and create the impact. And of course, connecting those to the Secretary General's roadmap on digital cooperation and the Sustainable Development Goals. So just to be brief, I know we have not much time to introduce the multi-stakeholder working group. So we have 23 experts that were invited to join and provide this steer while defining the work of the PNMA. Oh, thank you so much, Anya. Anya is showing all the list and the names that are in the website. And so we're just starting. Anyone interested, please, this is my call for action. Join the mailing list. In the IGF website, you're finding all the information about the dedicated mailing list. The meetings from the multi-stakeholder working group are open to observers. So if you're also willing to join, they are going to happen monthly. The next one is 15th of July, and this information is also going to be provided pretty shortly. I hope this helps, Anya, and we're going to have time to talk a little more later. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Raquel. This was very helpful, and all colleagues interested in joining or learning more about the PNMA will be having a chance to chat one-on-one with Raquel in one of the breakout rooms, which we will start in a few minutes after we hear from other colleagues from the institutional work streams. So with thanking again Raquel, I would like now to give the floor to Ms. Florina Waspi. She is leading the Policy Network on Environment from the IGF Secretariat. Florina, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet you. Thanks, Anya, for giving me the word. It's nice to follow up on Raquel with the other policy network. As Anya has said, I'm really excited to be part of this kind of experimental new format that has we also have on, or the policy of network also is working with a group of very unique experts. And maybe as Raquel did, maybe some words about why do we even need a policy network on environment. I guess it's for some of you pretty obvious, and I know that there's been, which is also one of the challenges, there's been a lot of work in recent months or 1.5 years regarding this topic of digitization and the environment. But yeah, just to be brief, I mean, the digital transformation has been going on for a couple of years now and has impacted most of the areas of our lives, and also everything that concerns the environment. Many states in the world have signed up to or have kind of committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think there are many states or many actors that are thinking about the impact of digitization and digital tools, digital technologies, and the digital transformation at large, the impact of all of that on the environment. And so our policy network has kind of reunited a group of experts that are interested, that are working in very different areas, but that are interested in kind of thinking about and acting on this topic. And so we are right now trying to find out how we can, or kind of our goal is to formulate concrete policy recommendations on how to act with digital transformation, on how to use digital tools and how to use them as a force for good, so to say so, or so that we may achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in different topical areas. In the beginning, Cengiz showed it on the slides. We're quite diverse. There are many different topics that we want to address, and we will narrow down further. It's really depending on the interests of our working group members and also of the larger network. And yes, thanks, Anya. You can also join a public mailing list, of course. You're very welcome. And here you see our group of experts, and we also are right now, we are a bit of the end of a process of kind of just methodology, defining the methodology according to which we want to work. We have a co-chair of 3 people who are will be leading the different working group meetings. We are meeting once a month, and from the next meeting on, we will also invite kind of the public as such, which is the idea, obviously, in the spirit of the IGF methodology, to really include a broader network, which is also one of the challenges that we're working now on, how to generate more outreach on our work, and how to not duplicate efforts that are in the making or that have been in the making in the last couple of months. That was it.
Thank you very much, Florina. And likewise, as I said for Raquel, Florina will be also in one of the breakout rooms, so you can join and speak to Florina one-on-one if you would like to learn more about the PNE. And moving from policy networks now to best practice forums, I would like to give floor to Sheetal, one of the and Wim, one of the co-facilitators for the best practice forum on cybersecurity, to guide us briefly on what's happening there.
Great, thank you, Anya. Can you see my screen? I guess this is what I would like to show. Just bear with me for 1 second. All right, can you see it? I don't know whether you can see the right thing, but
Yeah, we can see a PowerPoint, yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so actually Wim put this together, so thank you. For doing that, Wim. Yes, it's great to see you all. My name is Sheetal Kumar, and I am a senior program lead at Global Partners Digital, but I'm also part of the coordinating team for the Best Practice Forum on Cyber. And I know we don't have much time. I'm one of the co-leads of the third work stream, which is all about outreach. And that's why I'm here with you. The other one, the other co-lead is Marcus Kummer. So he's here as well. And I know he's talking to you later. So let me introduce to you a little bit about what we're planning to do this year. And we've already started actually. So do get involved if this interests you. As you can see on the screen, we are basically building on the work that we've already been doing in the BPF on cybersecurity over the past 2 years. We're looking at norms, but I think this year we're doing something even more exciting than we were doing before, which is through Workstream 1, looking at the texts that relate to cyber norms and making sure that we are aware of everything that is out there that is relevant, but also doing some analysis on what drives cyber norm adherence. And then in the second work stream, we are actually taking texts, from the page, so to speak, and assessing them to real life incidents, cyber incidents, and looking at what happened and whether the norms could play a role in mitigating those kind of incidents. We're also going to be speaking to for example, victims of cyber incidents and bringing their voices to the table. And in the third work stream, as you can see, what we want to make sure is that this analysis and this work really feeds into the rest of the work that the IGF community is doing. And so that's what this work stream is all about. That's why I'm here with you today as well. So I think there's a lot to learn from each other, a lot to make sure to make sure that this work is really the most impactful it can be for the multi-stakeholder community. And so really encourage you to join in. It's a brief overview, but please join us in the breakout group if you want to hear more.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rital, and this was very interesting. And from cybersecurity, moving to best practice forum on gender and digital rights. I believe Bruna, one of the co-facilitators, is with us, and Bruna will be speaking briefly about the concept of the BPF gender. Bruna, thank you.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you, Anya. It's really good to be here as well. So my name is Bruna Santos. I am one of the co-coordinators of the BPF Gender and Digital Rights. In the past years, this BPF was referred to as BPF Gender and Access, but given the really thorough work we have been doing in the past 5 years, this was one created back in 2015. We decided to expand a little bit the scope and then take a look on some things related to digital rights right now. So for the year of 2021, the main subject and goal of this BPF is to understand how gender disinformation has been deployed as a strategy against women and gender diverse groups. This is also something relevant to highlight, that this BPF is also it's also taking a further look into other groups more than just women. So we have also expanded the scope based on some recommendation from our members in the past years. And other things we want to do is understand as well the negative effects on digital rights spill over the set of rights, such as political participation, and what allows gender disinformation to be part of a larger project of silencing voices, censorship, and hierarchization of citizenship and rights. Another thing we want to do for this year's work is to map strategies and actions and to highlight, just as every other year, the best practices and the good strategies that are being deployed by all stakeholders around the world, and then showcase these positive initiatives. This is a BPF that's around its third. We're gonna have our fourth meeting on the 8th of July, so everybody's pretty much welcome. We have so far done a survey in order to gather both a resource list, so list of either speakers, specialists, or any good work that is being constructed around this topic. And also we have done a kickoff survey to request how our members are seeing this concept and how what other approaches the BPF should take for this year. So that is pretty much it from us. Our next meeting will be on the 8th of July. We're going to have two specialists, Maria and the second one, I'm forgetting the name, but Maria Ressa will be with us, and Maria Cessa, sorry. And that's it. Everybody's pretty much welcome. And if you're interested on these topics, please make sure to join the Q&A, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So thank you, Anya.
Well, thank you very much, Bruna. Also, thank you to Wim for supporting this BPF from the Secretariat for preparing this presentation. So with this, we are moving closer to the end of rounding the discussion on the international work. I mentioned at the beginning the dynamic coalitions as the coalitions or networks of different stakeholders working on various issues throughout the years. Some are really working on it for quite a number of years. But the best person to speak about that is a person that does not need any introduction, I'm sure, Mr. Markus Kummer. He is facilitating the coordination of the dynamic coalitions supported by Serena from the Secretariat. And I'm giving the floor now to Markus to guide us through the work of the dynamic coalitions.
Thank you, Serena. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. You said in your introduction that the dynamic coalitions are as old almost as the IGF. Indeed, they started in Athens at the very first IGF meeting. What is common to them all is they are bottom up. They are self-organized, and they're open to everyone who wants to join. Currently, there are 22 of them, so it would be take too much time to go into the details, but what is also common is the diversity of issues they cover. They're incredibly diverse. They cover very practical issues such as accessibility for people with disabilities. Some cover more high-level issues such as rights and principles, but there's also a youth coalition which is defined by its membership, obviously young people. And there's one dynamic coalition is about the summer schools that is more comparing notes. It's not, for instance, driving a common issue. But again, they are very diverse, and what is common to them is they meet throughout the year. A few years ago, we have started this coordination group where we all dynamic coalitions get together and agree on certain common principles. We have established common principles they all abide by, that their mailing lists have to be open. Anybody who wants to join is welcome to join, and their archives also have to be open. So these are the ground principles that define the dynamic coalitions. Now, this year we have started a new exercise that is to develop a paper that would sum up where we are, where they come from. There would be a more investigative part that would be fact-finding and explain what they have been doing, and also highlight the achievements and the impact they have achieved throughout the years. And then we would also be more forward-looking and look what can be done and what needs to be done so that the IGF Dynamic Coalition can reach the full potential. They all agree that they are an integral part in the Secretary General's roadmap and can contribute to the IGF Plus that is envisaged in that roadmap. But also they are keen to participate in the issue groups that for this year, for the first time, will prepare the ground for the annual IGF meeting in Katowice. I think I can leave it at that, and I'm happy to talk more about it in the breakout groups. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Markus, for this brief and concise, informative update about the dynamic coalitions. So with that, I think we've rounded the brief updates from the international work streams on their concepts and how you can join. And now I believe our hosts will help us to move into breakout rooms. We will be having, I believe, 5 breakout rooms, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I'll just post them in the chat. And for about 15 minutes, you'll have opportunity to speak one-on-one with colleagues that you just heard from about the intersessional work streams that they facilitate together with other members of the MAG or of the community. And we will have the breakout rooms open for a maximum of 15 minutes when we will come back to the main room. I will be also walking from one room to another very curiously to see what will be happening. And I also advise all of you to perhaps take the advantage and walk from one room to another just to meet better our co-facilitators and help us to advance the work if you have any ideas and suggestions in that respect. So with that, I believe the breakout rooms are active now. And if you click on join breakout room, you can join any of the rooms. If I'm correct, Roberta, Sandra, and host colleagues.
Anya, it's Sandra speaking. I set up the rooms and they should be visible for the participants now.
Yes, I can see them definitely. And
Okay.
I see Florina and Shita, Liana already moved.
And everyone has to make his own decision to move into one specific room.
Wherever
We
they
don't do
want.
the random order.
Yes, so I think if you click on more, you see join breakout room, and there are 5 rooms at your disposal. You're free to join any of the rooms, move from one room to another. Until you don't move, I'll just stay a little bit here in the main room, and then I'll join you in one of the breakout rooms.
Hi, Anya, this is Titi. So strange, I cannot see. I cannot see where I can join the breakout room. There is nothing that is displayed on my side. I see Studio Trieste, but I don't see anything else. Maybe it's my browser.
It should be under more.
Under more, I see. I have other. In another, I see just disable video receiving, and then I have setting. On setting, there is nothing. So, but anyway, it's not a problem.
So you don't see
secondary.
more. If you click on more, you don't
I
get the
see
option.
secondary. Oh, okay, I see secondary session. Yeah, it's in Italian. So that's I see the coalition. Okay, now I found them.
Yeah, that's
okay, thanks.
okay,
thanks.
I can assign you to a room if you tell me which.
Anyway, Roberto, I found it was in a secondary session on my side. There was a button called on the bottom of the display. There is a button called secondary session. I found it. Thanks a lot for your help. Anyway.
Thank you, Roberta and Titi. I'm just sharing my screen just in case it would help. I see some of the rooms are having maybe 2 participants or 1. So hopefully that will help you if you don't see it, to see who's in the room and where you can go. So you basically just need to click on more, join the breakout room, and then you have to click here, join, depending on which room you would like to choose. And that should be straightforward. The same goes if you want to leave the room, you come back to the main room, and then you go to another room. If you have issues like Titi now, or I see Serena also said it in the chat, then maybe with your permission, or you can indicate in the chat, Roberto can help to move you directly to the room where you would like to be moved. So if we have new colleagues joining us, I'll just repeat, we have 5 breakout rooms. So if you're interested in best practice forums, you can join one of the 2 rooms, so on cybersecurity or gender. Then on policy networks, you can join room on meaningful access or on policy network on environment. And you also can join the room to learn more about the updates of the dynamic coalitions, or if you have any ideas. Suggestions, ideas from your side for how to even advance better this work are most welcome, and they're very timely because we are about to start with the implementation design of the preparatory phase for the IGF. So if you, in short, if you would like us to move you to the breakout rooms, please do tell us. You can unmute yourself and speak, or just say in the chat and we'll ask Roberto to help us. Somebody who is named Mag Facilitator in the participants list, I don't know which name is that, but is asking to be assigned.
I did it. I moved
Okay.
Mag Facilitator.
Thank you
And
very much.
I also encourage others to write in the chat to which room they would like to be assigned to. Okay, I see Wim, you would like to go best practice forum security.
And I believe we are all back in the main room, but I'll just give it a couple of seconds to confirm that by the participants list. Yes, I think we are back. Well, I managed to join only one breakout rooms. That's how interesting it was. And I really got engaged into the discussions with Bruna, Wim, and Kokczek. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it well, but I want to thank you for a very good learning experience in these very few minutes. So that's always a well-spent time. And I hope you had a similar experience in your breakout rooms. We have 3-4 minutes until we have to close the session. So if anyone would like to take the floor and or use the chat to leave the feedback comments to what you've heard during this almost past hour about the IGF 2021 road to Katowice in December, as well as the sessional work. Now it's a good time. We have maybe a minute or two to reserve for that. If not, then I can just briefly say about the next steps. But before that, very happy to see that we will hear from Mark Carwell.
Yes, thank you, Anya. It's a very quick question, and apologies if I may have missed relevant information previously. But will there be an NRI assembly in Katowice? And how do you expect that to intersect with other discussions about the future of the IGF? Is there something you could quickly say about that? I'm thinking also of steering committees of national and regional IGFs being ready to prepare for such an important discussion about how they are going to contribute to the future of the IGF in its new IGF plus formulation. They need to start thinking about this and consulting their stakeholders at the national level. So the earlier they know of the opportunities to engage with others, the better, I would have thought. Thanks.
Indeed, no, but thank you very much, Marcus. That's a very good question and a very good advice and observation, and it comes in a very critical time. There will be the so-called the NRI's coordination session, basically mirrors the concept of the NRI's assembly that EuroDIG does, just on a global level. And the agenda is under development by the NRIs. So I believe tomorrow the Secretariat will call for the task force among the NRIs, such as the focus work group, to be formed, and then to further plan the agenda of that session. I will gladly take your advice to that task force to think about it. How could we develop the agenda accordingly? Because indeed, it's a very critical moment for the multi-stakeholder high-level body, but also other improvements on the IGF prompted by the roadmap and other processes that are around us. So all the NRIs for sure will be informed, including the EuroDIG. And if you allow, I would annex this more about this information to the report we will produce from this session. So it will not be, it will not be a feedback on the discussion, but basically an annex for additional information for records of all participants. And that coordination session will take place in Katowice, so it will be in a hybrid format, 90 minutes, and you're all most welcome to join its planning. So with that, thank you, Mark, again for a very good question. I believe Serena wanted to take the floor, and after that, Raquel. And I would stay really for the next 2-3 hours here on the session. It's so pleasant, but I do believe that the hosts will want us to leave in maybe 2-3 minutes from now, maximum. So please, Serena, you have the floor, then Raquel, then I do think we'll have to close the queue.
Thank you, Anya. Hello, everyone. I'll be quick, just building on what Marcus was saying about dynamic coalitions and the work we're trying to do this year on documenting their past experiences and trying to look a bit into how to improve their overall presence within the IGF ecosystem. We have an open survey, which is dedicated basically to everyone trying to collect ideas, suggestions, feedback, whatever, on dynamic coalitions in general and on how they maybe can be improved. So a kind request to everyone who is even remotely interested in IGF work to take a look. It's not that complex nor that long. So just take a look and give us your thoughts on dynamic coalitions. The survey is open until 25th July, and I'll paste the link in chat. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Serena, for that information. It's also on the IGF website's homepage in the news section, so you can find it. And we all really are joining Serena and encouraging you to respond and help us really take the most of the great potential of the dynamic coalitions. Raquel, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anya. And I'm going to be brief. First, apologies for the session, the PNMA session. I believe we just been teletransported and did not finish everything, but that's good. There is appetite. And I wanted to react also to Mark's comments to support it and to say that whenever you think there are also opportunities for us to join the NIRs and not only the coordination sessions that Anya do so well, but also the meetings itself, how we can bring them along, not only in our this season, everyone in the IGF community, that this is not cooked, right? They are cooking together with us. So that's a very important point that I just want to emphasize, that we are open, and I'm open, please, to let me know about those opportunities so we can cook this together, this experimental PNMA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raquel, for this call, and most certainly we're all joining it. The IGF Secretariat will also try to give more visibility to the meetings of the NRIs happening. Farah is our new intern at the IGF Secretariat. She's a great colleague, great addition, and she will be working with our team to ensure that maybe calendar of all the NRI annual meetings this year is more visible on the IGF website, that there's more information about the NRIs. And I believe in August, that information visually will be more appealing because the IGF is getting a new website. And I can for sure say now that what I've seen from the demos, the NRI pages look very nice, as well as the really other pages looks a bit different. With that, apologies, Roberto, we went 3 minutes over time, but I think with reason, with very good discussions. I want to thank everyone on Chengetai's behalf, on behalf of Henriette, that unfortunately could not join us due to an accident she had, but we hope that she is doing well. We will hear from her on our mailing lists. Please do stay in touch, subscribe to the IGF's mailing list. They're all available on the IGF website. And write to us. We're very much looking forward to hear from all of you. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you, EuroDIG 2021, for having us.
Thank you, Anya, and that closes the session. We are going to have a coffee break, and the next session is at 1700 local time. That's 1500 UTC. So there's a little bit music to relax, and see you all in some 40 minutes. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
sliding away. So much time has passed away. The wheel of fortune keeps on turning and turning. No chance to bring back time. Yesterday seems far behind. The lies are gone. Where are all the answers? Gotta get all the way. Got to get all the way. Gotta get all the way from F to K. Gotta get all the way. Got to get all the way. Gotta get all the way from F to K. The more I look, the more I find. Though it's all beyond my mind, sometimes words have to remain unspoken. What's the meaning of forever? Breaking through the heavy weather. We're in time, the train has left the station. Gotta get all the way. Got to get all the way. Gotta get all the way from F to K. Gotta get all the way. Got to get all the way. Gotta get all the way from F to K. Gotta get all the way. Got to get all the way. Gotta get all the way from F to K. Gotta get all the way. Got to get all the way. Gotta get all the way from F to K. Your decision time to choose from all the lies. Find your own truth. Now you're in a haze, can't keep the cool. Still there's nothing gain or lose. Yeah. Have to get all the way. Yeah.
So good afternoon, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, and we can start the next session, which is P-event number 12. So Youth Guide to Smart Cities, the Environment, and the Internet. Just few slides about housekeeping here at in the session. So the moderator is going to be Elliot Mann. Session rules. So please enter with your full name. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand using the Zoom function. You will be unmuted when the floor is given to you. When speaking, please switch on the video, state your name and affiliation. And don't forget that the chat will not be stored or published. Do not share the links to the Zoom meetings, not even with your colleagues or your friends. I think we're ready to start, and I leave the floor to Elliot, please.
Thank you. And I think I will immediately hand it to Alexandra to give us a bit of an introduction.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you also to co-organizers. As you all know, this session is organized by Youth Coalition on the Internet Governance. So I will briefly present Youth Coalition, and then I'll give the word to Elliot to speak about our session and our topic, which is Youth Guide to Smart Cities, Environment, and the Internet.
Sure.
Just
Yes,
quickly to share the screen.
I've got my slides. All right. Let me know if you can't see that good. Yes, so everyone, welcome to our session. Today we're going to be discussing smart cities, the environment, and the internet, which are three topics which might initially appear very separate. But what we're going to try and explore is how they sort of link together and why it's important, particularly for young people as well. So what I'm going to talk about, at least initially here, is I'm going to talk about, what are smart cities? What does it mean in relation to environmental sustainability? How do these react? We'll look at one case study, which is Barcelona, some of the issues raised out of the case study and more generally. And then also we're going to have some discussion questions. The way this session overall is going to be structured is a bit informal. I'm going to speak a bit here at the start. I'm by no means a subject matter expert, but what I really want to do is paint a picture for everyone, so you have an idea of what we're going to talk about later. Because the bulk of the session really is going to be an outline of, we're going to have some policy discussion questions that we're going to discuss. If we get enough people, we'll break out into breakout rooms, but at this point, I don't think we'll necessarily need to. And what we really want to do is spend the bulk of the session sort of going over these discussion questions, exploring the intersection between smart cities, the environment, and the internet, and then come back later and have, share what our thoughts are and what some learnings are. One of the things I really always enjoy about EuroDIG, but then these sorts of meetings more generally, is the ability of us to get different perspectives from all over Europe, all around the world, about these issues, and to hear about the different solutions. So what are smart cities? At its core, there's really a couple of things, and feel free at all times to leave something in the chat as well if you have some thoughts at this stage. Smart cities are firstly about the use of devices to collect data about the city. So this can be temperature, weather, traffic, all sorts of different things. And then secondly, it's about the integrated network between humans, technology, institutions, energy, and the environment. So if you think of a city as an organism, a smart city is something where we can look and see how the organism works. We can monitor it, and there's a network. All the different things are networked. So it's really about knowledge. It's really about information, and it's really about connectedness and knowing exactly what is happening at every point in time. Now, environmental sustainability, something very different, is about a focus on long-term environment survival. In many ways, often we talk about this in terms of climate change, but long-term can mean different things. In climate change, it means decades or even centuries. But even more sustainably, you want your city to last for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, as well as the next 100. So sustainability really means that something you can create which has long-term survival into the future. And then how do these interact? Well, a lot of the time people think that the rise of technology has come at the cost of the environment. And I think, in the broader world, we've seen that this is true in terms of things like climate change coming out of the last industrial revolution. But in smart cities, we know that technology is bad for the environment. It's developed in that way. But is that necessarily true with smart cities, where we integrate technology greater and greater into our cities? Is that coming at the cost of the environment? If you're putting more technology into these concrete slabs, I think you're ignoring the fact that you're still using concrete slabs all over your city. So initially, the way that smart cities and the environment interact is that your smart cities, you might be monitoring something that is inherently bad for the environment in the first place. So, the good example is monitoring vehicles. So electric vehicles in the long term are probably better for the environment, but what a lot of people discount is that electric vehicles are still made out of materials which, use a lot of greenhouse gases in their production. So with smart cities, again, you really have to take a step back and think about how the technology comes, at a cost. So Barcelona is an interesting case study. In Barcelona, a few years ago, they really focused on smart cities and integration. So they called it their City OS strategy, very technologically focused. They redesigned their bus network based on technology demands and what they were seeing in the environment, smart traffic lights, focus on livability. And again, all of this was really focused on livability, quality of life, improving things very generically in the city. Ultimately, they found that it did have a positive impact on the environment because congestion was reduced, with how they redesigned the bus network, more people were using public transport, which I think is true. But again, the point I'd stress, and I'll talk about it more in a second, is that, well, at a base level, are you still inherently monitoring something that is bad for the environment and that is not sustainable? So while Barcelona, again, the focus was on livability and how technology could be used to improve your life, if we were to juxtapose that against environmental sustainability, we have to ask, is it sustainable? And the answer is a bit more vexed. I mean, smart cities have, potentially, on one view, only been around for a couple of decades. Is that really the sort of time frame where we can look at things and say, is it sustainable? So some of the issues that are coming up against some of the issues that we come up with smart cities and the environment are things like surveillance, which I haven't really talked about yet, but is certainly an issue. I mean, if we're tracking everything in our cities, is that something, that respects our privacy? This is where we get into the positive and negative uses of technology. Do centrally planned cities ignore the natural organic growth of cities? Cities have organically evolved. I've seen some really interesting studies on how cities do evolve as organisms. If we put sensors all over our city and design them based off that point, does that ignore what is potentially their natural organic growth? Do smart cities ignore the inability of the common citizen to utilize these technologies? In many ways, if everything is tracked for you, well, then is that something that you can leverage? I know in New York City, for example, a lot of their transit data is exposed through common APIs, which is fantastic there, but that's not readily emulated across the rest of the world. And same with accessibility. And this is something that comes up very often when we're discussing technology issues, but doubly so when we're discussing smart cities and places where people actually live. Are the technologies, are these that enable a smart city, is it truly accessible to everybody, all the citizens? And often the answer is not. When you're developing technologies, it can be very, very difficult to cater to that final subset of users who really do need assistance. And they can be forgotten. But that cannot be the case in a city where absolutely everyone needs services and everything accessible to them. So some of the discussion questions that we're going to be focusing on, I do think we might have enough people to split out into groups, is how are smart cities envisioned in your economy? Europe is a very varied place. The world is a very, very varied place, and smart cities represent themselves differently in different places. What involvement do young people have in smart city governance in your economy? Again, and same with the next question, environmental governance. Again, this can represent itself differently in different places. I know in Australia, where I'm from, and certainly in a lot of Western countries, it can be very difficult for young people to feel like they probably have a voice and have a say in, whether it be local city governments and environmental governance. Again, the fourth question there around, what is the role of young people in local governance? Well, the role of young people in local governance is probably very, very important, but is it necessarily something that's respected? Maybe not. And the final question there around what steps can governments and other stakeholders take to ensure that cities best reflect those who live within them? I think this is really the practical question that we want to get at. So what we're going to do now is I think we might break out and discuss some of these questions. It's not necessarily required that everybody gets to and discusses all of these questions. If you just get stuck on the first one and have a really good conversation about it, then that's fine. But otherwise, the focus is really just on the discussion and figuring out what your thoughts are. So I will shortly put you all into breakout rooms. So just give me a sec.
Okay, while Elliot is configuring the breakout rooms, I'll be sharing the links to join the YCIG mailing list and our Facebook group as well.
Thanks. All right, I've just opened up the breakout room. So if you jump in there, and then I think I should be able to, I'll also still share the questions in the chat as well so everyone can see. Hi everyone, I think we're now all coming back from our breakout rooms. Does anyone want to share some of what they discussed?
My group was just with me and Noha, 2 persons, so I will just go through what we have discussed. So for the first question, I've just mentioned that Korea is trying to have more technology, AI, and 5G integrated throughout the economy, and trying to have a smart government by bringing more business and job opportunity, fostering the on-tech industry, supporting online activities and remote work. And Noah has also mentioned that Egypt is also trying to upgrade their infrastructure by encouraging e-services and financing, and trying to advocate it's okay to trust the online transaction and cashless services. And the second one was about participate in smart city and environment. So in Korea, there are a lot of projects like the youth trying to filling a constitutional appeal against the government and trying to raise the public awareness about like climate change. And Noah has shared that in Egypt, they are trying to have more sustainable fashion by using less plastic bag and having more advocate about those sustainable fashion. And the third one about the role of youth in local governance. So for this one, we think that youth are having a unique role in smart city because they have a fresh insight and they have good knowledge about high technology. So I think they should be the one who are trying to advocate and trying to even educate older generation by helping them to have a effective transformation, I would say, into a smart city. And also in this kind of sense, the government should also trying to see and trying to acknowledge those youth initiatives, because without their effort, it would be still very hard for the country to be transformed into a smart city. So yeah, those were our 2 persons discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, J1. That's very insightful. I really like the focus on really the role that young people can have in agitating for change, as well as, you know, just participating in you know, sort of the discussions. I think really being catalysts for change is really important as well. Anyone else want to share briefly what they talked about, even if it was only 2 people?
Hi, I had the opportunity to have a discussion with Titi. So she is a professional and has experience in internet governance as well, and she has been a MAG member herself. So it was quite a useful discussion that we had on the questions that are laid down. So on the first question of how are smart cities envisioned in your economy, and since Titi come from Roma, Italy, so she explained how it's not at present, maybe it must not have been envisioned as that important an asset, and there are several reasons to it, like fundings for many projects stopped, and there are several other environmental factors to be considered as well, like energy efficiency, improvement in development work, and intelligent cities designing. So she mentioned that Rome is also experiencing pollution problems, and there are so this leads to some working action items on which youth can work, and improve, and then it can be truly envisioned as a smart economy. Then we also discussed about the involvement of young people in smart city governance, and Titi explained that how young people have brilliant ideas, and it is very important to steer growth. She gave an example of how in the ICT sector, youth committee of Internet Governance Forum is formed in Italy, and it is also advocating for the voices of youth as well as smart internet governance. And similarly, it can be laid down for other development sectors as well. And then we talked about what involvement young people can have in environmental governance in economies. And in this section, I really like the point of Titi, where she mentioned that it's very important to have that integration of young minds and the old generation, because we discussed how in policy making bodies, it's old school that they require certain experience and certain age bracket because they expect some experience to have. But there needs to be some integration for to steer growth in that aspect as well. Maybe they can launch some campaigns or some short-term fellowships for the young minds, for the young people, in which they can get involved and then contribute to the decision making process. So in this way, not only the young minds learn about how policy governance can be made, but also the old generation gets an idea of what the young people are thinking about. So that was a very important point. And so basically this point covered the role of young people in local governance as well. So I also discussed about how some young people are contributing to the cause of local governance in Asia Pacific region. And Titi also resonated the same about how it should be done in European cities as well, including Italy. Then we were just discussing about what steps can governments and other stakeholders take to ensure that cities best reflect those who live within them. In this, we slightly discussed upon the point that private organizations do give young people a lot more chance to explore and to be involved with them. But there's a lot of scope for government sector as well to get involved with the young minds. And by the time we could gather over some more points or brainstorm on the more points, our time ended for the room. But it was really a very good discussion, and I'm really glad that we could get the window to discuss for this. Thank you.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks, Tiff. Certainly, I think one point that is important to stress is that all of this is a partnership. It should never be, one person working on solving a massive problem. In the same way that it's not just young people who have a responsibility here, it is a partnership with government, with other generations, with other demographics. So I really liked that point that arose out of your discussion. That's fantastic. Is there anyone else who would like to share? I think I can just make a general observation. Feel free also to put anything in chat if you want. A more general observation for me, I think the focus on partnerships and agitating for change is really important. I think one of the key elements that I think we've covered here is that smart cities aren't necessarily something that you should just dive into immediately and work on without considering the sort of other impacts out there. So one of the things I really do like arising out of this discussion is the idea that you need to have more thought, have a bit more forethinking about it. Vlad, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, with regard to some input from our team. Sorry, I will try to start my camera, but we had actually some connections, so the discussion was quite brief. So we were from Romania, and we tried to compare aspects governance, smart governance is implemented in our countries. Well, on the one hand, we know that in Serbia there's matters of citizens, from China as told us. In we see the initiatives with regard to transportation, doing the transport more efficient. Actually, the sentence on the environment. So that's trying to change carbon or city to better and can react in the of cities, and as for the initiatives of the young people is that really attaining, and we are trying right now to implement strategies in Romania, strategies on we better with the local administration in order to do some change in this session. Thank you.
No, for sure. I think that's very
So,
also
has some more input or Andrea.
Keep going. No, all good. No, I think that's really important as well. I mean, I remember I was in Romania a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that was highlighted there was how the integration of smart cities was very focused on, you know, catering to the local environment every time, which I felt was a really interesting and fantastic approach. And I really liked your points around highlighting the role of young people as well. I think it is very important to make sure that everyone is engaged and involved. Anyone else want to chip in? If not, I can probably start wrapping up. Alexandra, do you want to present the slides that you were going to present earlier before I stole the presentation away from you? And then once you're done that, I'll wrap up with everyone.
Yes, sure, Elliot. Okay. Are you able to see the slides?
Yep, I can see them.
Great.
Yes,
great.
perfect.
Yeah, as I mentioned, this session is organized by the EU Coalition on Internet Governance. So I'm going just to briefly explain what Youth Coalition on Internet Governance is, and to share with you the ways how you can participate in our activities. As I said, Youth Coalition on Internet Governance is an official recognized dynamic coalition at the IGF. So the dynamic coalition are not organizations, they are not initiatives, but they are a way in which like different stakeholders can collaborate on different issues that doesn't necessarily have to be one issue. They can be they can cover like a range of issues, but they focus on these issues between two IGF meetings. So the main issue which is focus of Youth Coalition Internet Governance is to advocate for the voice of children, young people, and young professionals in the field. Coalition itself was established in 2010, and so far we conducted many different activities. We also published many different papers, which you can also find on our website. Currently, like the steering committee of Youth Coalition Internet Governance is made from 5 representatives from 5 different UN regions. These are like current representatives. I think that everyone except Eileen is here today. And these are some of our activities. We collaborate a lot with our communities. We published a lot of questionnaires. Community participates in editing our charters, code of conduct. We also try to engage community when submitting different session proposals for different IGF events for different papers. The same things we did like with last and this year IGFs. We also participate with national and youth IGF initiatives around the world. One of the main project is also like mentorship for IGF Youth Ambassadors program. And there's also IGF Plus survey. We participated in global stakeholders for dialogue. We had a session at EuroDIG last year as well as this one. And we also collaborate with ISOC EuroDIG in creating open course for youth like IGF. And this year one of the big projects also will be like co-organization of Youth IGF Summit with ISOC EuroDIG and Youth IGF Poland. And these are there's our websites and mailing list. How you can actually join us and participate in our activities. Like these are very open and very friendly spaces. Like even if we don't organize something, there's many other young people who share their initiatives and their projects, and they're very, very open to include you and to work with you in organizing and improving position of youth in the field. I'm going to share also this in the chat because I guess you can make a note click. And that's basically it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for sharing. All right, so let me put up this slide that I just very quickly made. So here are some outcomes that I've come up with coming out of this session, based on our discussions and what we talked about earlier. I think certainly the key point here, something that's really arisen, is the importance of collaboration and partnerships. One of the frequent accusations leveled against young people when agitating for change is that they're not willing to play by the ball game and go through the usual channels, which is sometimes because those usual channels are a bit silly. But a lot of the time there is a need, at least initially, to focus on collaboration and partnerships. And this is, again, where integration with local environments plays a role in it as well. The ability for young people to bring change and to create things does differ depending on where you are. And in that same way, you have to advocate for change. You can't be a passive participant in change. That's just you being carried along by it. If you want actually things to change, unfortunately, you're going to have to do things. And this is where, collaboration and partnerships means that you don't have to do change yourself. And particularly when we're talking about the environment, and especially when we're talking about smart cities, this advocating for change and being active and not just letting things wash over you, I think that's something that we've all highlighted as being quite important. And again, this focus on sustainable change, from the foundation levels, it's not about, if we're, again, putting sensors into slabs of concrete, it doesn't get around the fact that we're still using slabs of concrete, which are bad for the environment. And in a different but similar way, speedy change is also something that you need to be wary of, where we've discussed here about the dangers of developing too quickly and doing things at too fast a pace, such that we lose sight of the environmental sustainability and other aspects here that are quite important. So does anyone have any thoughts or brief comments on the outcomes, some of the things we've discussed here? If not, I think, what was a message in the chat? Okay, well, obviously that's a great summary then, because it summarizes what everyone thought. So I think that's a good point for us to wrap up. We'll let you get about your afternoons, evenings, or mornings a bit 10 minutes earlier. I agree with Nora's chat. Feel free to keep the discussion going on our channels that we have. Otherwise, this is always an area in which change is always happening. There's always abilities for people to get involved and to agitate for change actively, not passively, actively. So yes, and thank you. So I think that wraps it up. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone for participating. I think it's been a really interesting session, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Elliot. And just to remind you that you can return back to gather.town. So here are the instructions on the screen. So close the Zoom room, then return to the relevant tab and go back to gather.town. And then to navigate to the venue, you can find a minimap icon at the bottom of the screen next to your name, which will also indicate your location. If you need any help, there is the help desk. And I think that's all for today. Thank you again for the great session, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Be safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.